Hey, it's PHILA, and you're watching PHILA TV, the ultimate YouTube channel. I'm no cinematographer, just a dude with a camera. Anyways, today we are in my Plumeria garden, and we are looking at some of these cuttings that I got in the ground back in February. I was actually at a car show. It's a VW bus show, Octo Fest in Long Beach, and there was a guy that had just cut down his Plumeria tree, and he brought a bunch of cuttings, and I was fortunate enough to get a whole bunch of these things. And they're all quite large, you can see, pretty good size. We had a lot of blooms this year, but also what we had too was some of the tips had turned black and died off. And I thought maybe because they were too long or they got too much moisture, but I mean, they were really long. So what I did is I cut everything back, and I've kind of videotaped what's going on over the course of the past 5 or 6 months that I've been working with these. But I was able to save the plant, one of them, by cutting it up and propagating everything, and I got a handful of good cuttings, and got a lot of nice additions to my collection. As you can see, I mean, these cuttings, they look great. They've done great over the past couple of months, and continue watching, because there's a lot more to come on this video. You'll see exactly the cuttings that I took and how I propagated them, and how they looked, and it'll even show you some of the blooms. But as you can see here, I mean, it's late in the season, but we have inflows that are starting on these plants, and we're already at Halloween in a couple of days from now. You can see this one is still blooming, so it's kind of cool, and we got a bunch of cuttings. So sit tight, watch the video, and then I hope you guys enjoy it, and give me a thumbs up. And remember, you can always find me too now on Instagram at the PHILA TV channel. I look forward to hearing from you guys. Talk to you soon. These bigger cuttings have been in the dirt for probably about 2 months or so. I would like to say we're in mid-April, beginning of May. As you can see, all my tips are looking good. They all have good, strong, brand new foliage growing on them. So we know we have some really good roots established. Even on my larger trees here, they even have inflow starting. One big plant in particular, as you can see with the real long arms, had inflows on every one of the tips, and then slowly each one of the tips started dying off one by one. Leaves would start falling off. Anything would start to grow back, it would turn black. And I went online, looked at Jacob's plumerias. Of course, he knows everything. He's great. He said on there those are black tips, and it's probably not going to work anymore. So I decided I would try cutting it back and kind of let it try and callus over and see what would happen. And they would start to grow new branches, and then they would die off immediately. You'd get the little tiny leaves starting, and they would start turning black, and it just started looking pretty sad, pretty crusty. And I knew that I was going to have to just cut each one of the tips off. So with this plant being long with these big long arms, I know I'm going to get at least 8 branches off of this. So it was time to cut it up and get these things propagating. And okay, as you can see, the plant's a lot more compact. Get all this out of here and get the plant to stand up more straight, which I will worry about that later. As you can see, I've got 7 great cuttings out of here. I'm going to let these dry, some of them dry out for a couple of days. I'm not going to do anything with the tip here, although I feel it's like crunchy. So I don't know if I should snip that off and let it start over, or just let it continue. That one's in there. And like I said, I heard Jacob from Jacob's Plumeria, another plug, say that once these turn black, they'll like never grow and never really, they won't bloom or even get leaves. So I'm thinking of just snipping these off right here. And this one is the best one out of all of them, so this one will go in a pot by itself, and it'll continue to be a great plant. These are about 3 months, maybe 4 months old. I think I planted them in mid-March is when I got them all. And most of my plants are getting big, but this thing, like I said, had a little problem with the with the black tips. So we're hoping we're going to cure that issue. And this plant. All right, so this is a follow-up to the July 5th video where I had taken this plant that had some screwed up tips. It had some black tips on it. I cut that up, and I had 7 or 8 cuttings that I was going to propagate. So here it is. 5 months later, you see we've gone through the whole growing cycle. Now the leaves are starting to turn yellow because we are in October 25th of 2019. And so we've gone through the whole summertime cycle. We've had a couple of blooms. It was a cute little plant here that had some blooms on it. It was one of the tips. So here it is right here. You can see it's even going to try and bloom again. But you can see these were all the center sections. There's 1, 2, 3. That's the 4th tip that split off. And then all the rest were center sections. And you can see just after a handful of months, let them dry for a couple of months. I mean for a couple of weeks, letting tips dry off so they callus over. And then I used the powdered hormone and the soil like you see everybody else makes, and I just let it go. So here it is. I'm going to try and do another follow-up in just a few weeks once the leaves start to fall. It's still pretty hot here in Southern California, well into high 80s, low 90s, so they're still doing pretty well. We still got new growths going on the tips here on all the plants. So these came across pretty nicely, and if you didn't follow the first part of the video, which I'm going to put at the beginning, I had got some moisture on my tips on the big plant here that had real long arms. I had black tips and they were just not growing back. So I checked around. Of course, Jacob in Jamaica, Jacob's Plumeria, of course, he's like the wizard. So followed his instructions, what he did, and I cut mine up. And even one of the tips that was really bad, I think it must be this one. Yeah, you could see how that was, the tip was all black, and I cut it off with an X-Acto knife and it grew back, and look how much growth we have just in a handful of months. And this was that chunky one. Now this is actually the one, big branch that had a lot of black too, and I think this piece came off of here, or one of them did. Anyways, you get confused. I'll have to go back and look at some of the other pictures. But they're doing well, and I'm going to follow it throughout the season. So we are looking at 5 months from the time I cut the branches off. This big one, which took about 3 months to grow. It was growing really well. I mean, all the rest of them were doing really well, but it's like I said, the tip started getting black, so I chopped it up, and look how much I came off of one plant. All right, we'll be back. Okay, here's kind of a better look at these, what I've called octo yellow, because they finally got a chance to bloom. And as you can see, we have some really nice little yellow flowers, and you can see some of these are still blooming. Anyways, these were just a bunch of branches. I wish that I had the footage from when I took these, but these were in early February, late January, I think I got these, and I thought they were too early for the season. As you can see, these were real long ones. So this is the one that I cut down. I mean, I cut up and propagated about 7 or 8 of them. So it looks like we got a pretty good mix of these. I'm quite happy with the yield that I got from trimming back the biggest one. I hope you guys really enjoyed this video. It took a couple of months to do, and I'm still not done. These things are still getting ready to lose all their leaves, and they'll go dormant for the winter. So I kind of have a shelter set up for them. And I'm going to try and keep them dry and keep them warm. And next season, they'll really explode. Alright, so I hope you guys like this. Give me a thumbs up and visit me on Instagram, PHILA TV channel. Be well and enjoy the plumerias.